Hey, Dr. John Finn here. Welcome to the Habit Mechanic podcast. Right now, you can get my new best-selling book, Train Your Brain for the AI Revolution, at tougherminds.co.uk. The digital book, audiobook, and physical book are all available at a special price that you won't find anywhere else. Hello, Habit Mechanics. Dr. John Finn here. I hope that everyone's having a fantastic week. It's exciting because it's the start of a new month. That means that we can reset, we can reflect back on how January went and what we can do even better in February. And I think 3 podcasts ago, I introduced the FAM story tool for those of you who haven't come across that before. That podcast is called Boost Your Motivation and Personal Drive in 2023 with one simple tool. And in that pod, I actually share chapter 16 from the Habit Mechanic book, which talks through how to create your own FAM story and how to update your own FAM story. So FAM story is basically a really powerful way of connecting your long, medium and short-term goals and plugging those into your daily habits. And actually just in the Habit Mechanic University app today, someone was sharing how they've, for a long time, and this is a very experienced person, but for a long time they've used quite structured goal setting, but they were just saying how powerful it is to actually add the habits into it, and how the FAM story tools really help them to supercharge their approach to that, even though they've been doing it for most of their life. So this is a great opportunity, the end of a month, the beginning of a new month, to reflect back, learn from our successes, learn from our failures, and plan to do even better. So I'd really encourage you to listen back to that podcast. If you've got the Habit Mechanic book, go into it, update your FAM story, and that's going to give you a renewed focus for February, and it's going to make it easier to make the small changes that are going to supercharge your health, your happiness, and your performance. What I want to share in this episode is a focus on how we can actually make positive change in our lives. So I've just actually had, I've just submitted let me say that a different way. One of my next article in Forbes will be available very soon. It's just in copy editing. The title is Why Traditional Coaching is Broken and How to Fix It Using a New Science-Based Approach. Now, I've been working in the fields of resilience, performance psychology, leadership for over 20 years. I've got 3 degrees in these areas, including a PhD. And that's always been the thing that bugged me, was how I was taught to help people to do better. I thought wasn't that effective, because we were taught that if you could get people to know what they should do differently, give them some more knowledge and give them some skills, that was enough. That was going to help them to actually do things differently. And of course, we know that that isn't true. And one of the books that I read over Christmas was James Dyson's autobiography. And many people know that story about, he had over 5,000 failed attempts to create his new cyclonic vacuum cleaner. But for me, the Tougher Minds journey and the Habit Mechanic journey of refining our toolkit and making it even easier for people to be at their best is a bit like the Dyson story, because he saw that vacuum cleaners, as they weren't that effective. They didn't do a great job for the end user, and he wanted to create something much more powerful. And that's what I saw 20 plus years ago, that the tools that were available and the tools that people still use today, the dominant tools people use today, they're not effective, and there's a better way to do it. And this is why I'm so pleased that we got the Habit Mechanic book out about 9 months or so ago, and I'm on a daily basis, people are telling me that they've been reading books in this space for a long time. They've been trying to be their best for a long time. And they feel that the habit mechanic approach is a game changer for them because it moves them from knowing what they should be doing to actually being able to do it. In other words, build the habits to allow them to do it. And part of our secret sauce is our habit mechanic coaching and change system. And we talk about that in the book as the 9 action factors. And I'm going to share the full chapter that introduces the 9 action factors in the book, which is chapter 18. I'm going to share that later in the podcast so you can really take a deep dive into the things that you need to pay attention to if you actually want to help yourself and others to build sustainable new helpful habits. So if we just zoom out of this and just recap on the habit mechanic approach, your brain runs your life. If you have a business or a team, brains run the business, brains run the team. And what we now know, relatively new insight, is that brains predominantly run on mindless behavior. That is what we think and what we do. And we estimate, the current estimates are that we are on autopilot or semi-autopilot 98 to 100% of the time. So most of what we're thinking and doing is on autopilot. And that means that most of what we're thinking and doing is a habit ultimately. So if we want to help ourselves do better and we want to help our team and our people do better, we have to focus on helping them to build better habits. Traditional approaches to helping us being our best don't focus on that. They focus on more knowledge and more skills. And the example I use a lot is that most of us know and agree that it's a good idea to eat 5 portions of fruit and vegetables a day and to walk 10,000 steps. But knowing that isn't enough to compel us to do it. So I'm going to share with you those 9 action factors, take a deep dive. I'm going to share the chapter 18 from the audiobook so you can really listen to that. What's also really exciting for us at the moment is that we're training our first group of certified habit mechanic coaches who are taking this system into the world and using it with their clients and already starting to get fantastic results. So our mission at Tougher Minds is to make it as easy as possible for people to be their best using insights from cutting edge science. So the fact that we're now certifying people to become habit mechanics is really exciting. We're already starting to see positive results from that. If that's of interest to you, if you want to become a certified habit mechanic coach and learn how to use the habit mechanic coaching and change management system for yourself and for your clients or your people, just get in touch and let's have a conversation. Okay, so we're going to go over to to chapter 18. Before we do, I just want to remind you that if you want to start building better habits, a really powerful thing to do is to create your daily tea plan. That's a daily 2-minute exercise that makes your life easier. It saves you hours every day. That's chapter 1 in the book. But also in the Habit Mechanic University app, which is available on Apple and on Android, so it's in Google Play and the Apple App Store, it's free. The Habit Mechanic community are in there every day and they're posting their daily tea plans. So you can go in there, you can post your tea plan if you want. If you don't want to, you can like and comment and positively engage with other people's plans. Or you can just go in there and see what people are doing. So to get a better sense of how other people are using these approaches. So if you do want to make positive change, remember the bottom of the FAM story, the bottom of the iceberg, which is the FAM story metaphor, is all about habits. It's all about the things that you practice today. And if you want to practice doing something differently today, in other words, if you want to practice building a new helpful habit today, it's really important that you do intelligent self-watching and intelligent planning. And the app is a really, really powerful way to make it easier for you to do intelligent watching and intelligent planning. And the 9 action factors that you're about to learn more about, the app is very powerful in activating quite a few of those factors. We've designed it that way very specifically, and the new features we're going to release in the app are going to make it even more powerful. So I hope that's got you thinking, and I hope that chapter 18 from the book, which I can't remember the title, so I'm going to open the book now. It's on my desk. I have a couple of different desks, and I've got a copy of The Habit Mechanic on all of them, and I guarantee you I picked this book up multiple times of the day. So the chapter 18 is called The Secret 9 Factors That Really Control Your Life. And if you keep listening, you're going to learn more about them. Chapter 18, The Secret 9 Factors That Really Control Your Life. If we did not already recognise that it is challenging for anyone to build new helpful habits, a story about former US President Barack Obama can help us understand more. It is also worth noting that Obama was not just the first African American president, but the third youngest in over 100 years. CBS News showed Mr. Obama taking questions from the press shortly after announcing new laws to regulate the American tobacco industry. A reporter asked him several questions about his own smoking habits. How many cigarettes does he smoke every day? Does he smoke in the presence of others? Barack Obama is regarded by many as a consummate statesman, a highly capable leader, and a powerful role model. But even he admitted that stopping smoking was a struggle. "Have I fallen off the wagon?" he said. "Occasionally, yes." He added, "I'd say I'm 95% cured, but there are times when I mess up." Like folks who go to Alcoholics Anonymous, smoking is something you continually struggle with. In this chapter, we'll explore the science and the simple, practical steps you can use to build the sustainable new habits that will make it easier to be your best. Verbal persuasion doesn't work. Changing our habits, the foundations of all human behaviour, is complex. We often fail because we do not understand the science of behavioural change. When we try to build a new habit in any area of our life, the default but faulty behaviour change technique we have been taught is what I term verbal persuasion. We notice an unhelpful habit and persuade ourselves we really do need to stop. For example, we tell ourselves, we are beating ourselves up too much, we must stop. We may even tell somebody else of our intention to stop this unhelpful behaviour. We use the same verbal persuasion technique if we want someone else to change a behaviour. You might say, "I think it would be a good idea if you turned up for meetings on time, because this would be helpful for team performance." But even if people agree that your behaviour change suggestion is a good idea, this is not enough to help people build the new habits that will deliver the change. The behavioural science is clear. This traditional approach to changing habits is over-reliant on willpower. Wanting to make a change is not enough to build a new habit. To make sustainable change, we must use insights from behavioural science to create a precise, step-by-step approach. Willpower is the conduit for change, but it is limited. All behaviour change begins with using willpower to resist the old habit. For example, trigger an ape incentive. You notice the urge to check your phone now, meaning that you will have to break your focus on an important piece of work that you need to complete as soon as possible. This is Hugh, horribly, unhelpful emotions, looking for a short-term gratification, driven by the ape incentive. Having the phone in your eye line is part of the trigger for your desire to check it. Routine. You use willpower to regulate your emotions and resist the temptation of entering the old routine of checking the phone. By doing this, you are starting to create a new routine. That is, when you feel the urge to check your phone, you show resolve and stay focused on the task on which you are working. But if you only rely on your willpower, it is likely Hugh will eventually win and you will check your phone. Although willpower is the conduit for building new, helpful habits, it is a limited resource. So we need to use willpower plus behavioural science to secure new habits. The 9 Action Factors framework. To help people regulate their emotions and supercharge the habit-building process, I used the latest insights from behavioural science to create the proprietary Tougher Minds 9 Action Factors framework. I use this framework and the 200 plus tactics I have created to help my clients create personal change and cultural change. That is, a habit-building program across a team or entire business. Here I will show you how to use a simple version to help you build new habits that last. All of the 9 factors are interconnected. Each is also connected to the trait, trigger, routine, ape incentive, training, habit loop. Here is a simple overview of the 9 factors. I will explain each in greater detail later. 1. Habit mechanic mindset factor. This factor is mainly connected to the ape incentive section of the trait habit loop. If you don't believe you can improve, you never will. The right mindset is essential for changing your habits. 2. Brain state optimization factor. This factor is mainly connected to the ape incentive and training sections of the trait habit loop. To successfully build new habits, your brain needs to be neurobiologically ready for change. 3. Tiny changes factor. This factor is mainly connected to the ape incentive section of the trait habit loop. You can change, but only one tiny step at a time. 4. Personal motivation factor. This factor is mainly connected to the ape incentive section of the trait habit loop. It is easier to change if there is a meaningful reason why. 5. Personal knowledge and skills factor. This factor is mainly connected to the routine section of the trait habit loop. Building new habits often requires you to learn new things. 6. Community knowledge and skills factor. This factor is mainly connected to the routine section of the trait habit loop. If people around you already know how to do the thing you want to learn, for example, manage stress, it will be easier for you to learn to do it. 7. Social influence factor. This factor is mainly connected to the ape incentive section of the trait habit loop. If the people around you are already doing the thing you want to do, it will be easier for you to do it. 8. Rewards and penalties factor. This factor is mainly connected to the ape incentive section of the trait habit loop. Rewards encourage behaviour and penalties discourage it. 9. External triggers factor. This factor is mainly connected to the trigger section of the trait habit loop. It is easier to do things if you get triggered or reminded to do them. Activating all 9 action factors together makes building and sustaining new habits easier. Why do we need to know so much to build new helpful habits? Many of the thoughts and actions that are unhelpful for our health, happiness and performance are what I call simple behaviours, like eating donuts, checking your phone too often and beating yourself up. These behaviours are ape, alive, perceived, energy brain, friendly, and driven by human instincts connected to staying alive, achieving and maintaining social status, and conserving energy. These simple behaviours are increasingly agitated and exploited in the learning war we are all fighting. Unfortunately, many of the thoughts and actions that are most helpful for being our best in the modern world are what I call complex behaviours, like sleeping well, eating healthily, exercising sufficiently, not dwelling on negatives for too long, and becoming an outstanding leader. These behaviours are not ape-brain friendly. They require us to learn new knowledge and skills and become expert habit builders, or, in other words, habit mechanics and chief habit mechanics. The 9 action factors are constantly influencing your behaviour, for better and for worse, but we are largely unaware of them. To help you take more control over your own thoughts and actions, I'll show you how to use the 9 action factors framework to your advantage. Using the 9 action factors. I use learning to drive as an example to understand more about how we can use the 9 action factors to help us build new, helpful habits. Like many of the things we would like to improve, driving is also a complex behaviour, which is why it is a good example to use. Even if you haven't learned how to drive, this example will still make sense. Here are the 9 action factors and how they influence us when we learn to drive. 1. Habit mechanic mindset. Think of mindset as belief and what we believe. People with a habit mechanic mindset believe they can improve anything with practice and take responsibility for being their best. People with an ape-brain mindset believe they are only good at certain things, cannot change, and become victims of VUCA world conditioning. Chapter 9, Figure 9.1. If we did not believe we could learn to drive and were not prepared to put the effort into learning, we would not have achieved this milestone. A habit mechanic mindset is essential for learning to drive. To learn more about the origins of how I began to understand this factor, start with Professor Carol Dweck's work on mindset and Professor Walter Mischel's work on mastering your mindset by understanding your self-control, and see how these theories have developed over time. 2. Brain state optimization. In simple terms, this relates to how ready your brain is to learn. If you were sleep deprived and took a driving lesson, you would unlikely to be in the right brain state to concentrate and gain anything helpful from the lesson. Equally, if you are stressed or in a bad mood, it will also be more difficult to learn. Remember, emotions drive attention, attention drives learning. If we want to learn something new, we must be in the right brain state. To learn more about the origins of how I began to understand this factor, start with Professor John Medina's Brain Rules work. 3. Tiny changes. This factor relates to the size or scale of the change we want to make. For example, lose 15 pounds, get an extra hour of sleep per night, become the best leader in my business. In simple terms, we can make changes to behaviour, but we can only make one small change at a time. If we want to learn to do something new, it is far more efficient to do it in stages and focus on making one tiny change at a time. For example, we learn to drive over extended periods and build up a surprising amount of tiny new interconnected habits. We do not simply climb into the car and immediately gain a complete understanding of how to drive. Often, many first lessons just involve the student working out where all the controls are in the vehicle. So, to best use the tiny factor, we should work towards an accumulation of tiny changes and improvements, instead of trying to make a single, massive leap of progress. Here are some other examples. Want to lose 1 stone, or 14 pounds? First focus on losing half a pound. Want to get an extra hour of sleep per night? Aim for 1 minute of extra sleep tonight, then build up to 5 minutes and so on. Want to be the best leader in your business? Start by developing one tiny new habit that will improve your leadership. In this book, I have deliberately used tiny and small interchangeably. To learn more about the origins of how I began to understand this factor, start with Professor B.J. Fogg's work on tiny habits and see how these theories have developed over time. 4. Personal motivation. It's easier to make a change or build a new habit if you can connect it to a bigger, meaningful goal in your life. This is one of the reasons why I asked you to create a FAM, Future Ambitious Meaningful Story iceberg in Chapter 16. In the case of driving, you may have needed or wanted to learn how, for work reasons, or to take your children to school, or to be the first qualified driver in your peer group, or some other reason. But if we can connect the change we want to make to our bigger goals, dreams, and desires, this will provide motivation and make it easier to keep persisting with difficult changes. To learn more about the origins of how I began to understand this factor, start with Professor Edwin A. Locke's and Professor Edward Deci and Professor Richard Ryan's work on motivation and self-determination, and see how these theories have developed over time. 5. Personal knowledge and skills. We do not need to acquire new knowledge and skills to eat a donut, but it is often essential for complex behaviour change, like learning to drive, improving our confidence, or enhancing our sleep or productivity, etc. To learn more about the origins of how I began to understand this factor, start with Professor Anders Ericsson's work on expertise and see how these theories have developed over time. 6. Community knowledge and skills. What knowledge and skills do our families, peers and communities have that might help us? Having a parent who knows how to drive can be helpful if you also want to learn. Think of free driving lessons in supermarket car parks. A colleague knowing how to build better stress management habits is helpful if you also want to develop some. The reason I try to make all our insights simple is so they can be shared among colleagues and families and across the habit mechanic community. The more people there are in your network who understand the habit mechanic tools and language, the more powerful they become. To learn more about the origins of how I began to understand this factor, start with Professor Albert Bandura's work on social learning and see how this theory has developed over time. 7. Social influence. Our ape brain is strongly influenced by the behaviour of those people we look up to and respect. Remember, P stands for perceived. So we implicitly worry about how we are perceived by these people because we want them to like us. In the case of learning to drive, if our parents think that speed limits can be ignored or there is no need for car insurance, they won't be good role models for us as learner drivers. To learn more about the origins of how I began to understand this factor, start with Dr. Stanley Milgram's and Professor Robert Cialdini's respective work on social influence and see how these theories have developed over time. 8. Rewards and penalties. Our ape brain is strongly influenced by rewards and penalties. These can be social, intrinsic, or extrinsic. In the case of driving, people are rewarded for driving well and penalised for driving poorly. If you drive well, you eventually pass your test and gain a full licence, a reward. A long period of accident-free driving usually means a lower motor insurance premium, another reward. But breaking the speed limit can mean a fine, points, higher insurance, and if you do it too many times, a lost licence. In other words, penalties. We can use rewards and penalties to help us build new, helpful habits. To learn more about the origins of how I began to understand this factor, start with Professor B.F. Skinner's work on variable rewards and see how these theories have developed over time. 9. External triggers. External triggers in our modern world can be physical and digital. The smartphone is one of the most powerful external triggers ever designed. In a vehicle, we are surrounded by triggers. The speedometer shows us how fast we are travelling. A line in the middle of the road indicates which side we should drive on. A pedestrian crossing reminds us to stop. All of these are triggers, and they are often loaded with rewards and penalties. I will explain more about this later. To learn more about the origins of how I began to understand this factor, start with Professor Richard Thal and Professor Cass Sunstein's nudge work and see how these theories have developed over time. Summary of the 9 action factors. Think of each factor like a switch that you can turn on or off. If you turn the switch on for each factor, they will work for you, and building a new habit will become easier. But if the switches are turned off, each factor will work against you, and building the habit will be more difficult. Learning how to turn each switch on is an essential habit mechanics skill, and something you will be much better at by the time you finish the book. Test. If it is helpful, write down the 9 action factors to see how good your memory is. Learning how to switch on the 9 action factors. How can I learn to develop a habit mechanic mindset? You are already developing one by listening to this book. First, you are learning about the science-based insights that show your abilities are not fixed and that you can change and improve. Second, you are learning how to build small, new, helpful habits so you can directly experience positive personal change. For example, if you have been using the daily tea plan regularly, I would imagine you are already starting to see some success. This will build your confidence in your ability to make changes that help you feel and perform better. How can I learn to optimize my brain state? Start by using the insights shared in Chapter 19 to improve your sleep, diet, and exercise habits, Chapter 21 to improve your activation, Chapter 22 to improve your stress management, Chapter 23 to calm your brain by building robust confidence, and Chapter 25 to supercharge your focus and productivity. These insights will help you become an expert at optimizing your brain state, making it easier for you to build new habits and be your best. Will you remind me to focus on making tiny changes? Yes, this idea is built in to the habit mechanics self-reflection and planning tools within this book. For example, Daily T, Tiny, Empowering Action Plan. How can I learn to increase my personal motivation? The Future Ambitious, Meaningful Story, FAM Story, Chapter 16, has been purposefully designed to help you do this and has already helped thousands of other habit mechanics fire up their motivation. An important motivation theory embedded into the habit mechanics self-reflection and planning tools is called self-determination. I will explain more about this and how to use it in The Cultural Architect, Chapter 32. How can I learn the knowledge and skills to help me develop the habits I want to build? If you want to develop habits to help you achieve the following outcomes, I'm going to show you how throughout the remainder of the book. Improving diet, exercise and sleep for better brain health and performance, Chapter 19. Better stress management, Chapter 22. Spending less time thinking unhelpful thoughts, Chapters 22 and 23. Being focused to drive productivity, creativity and problem solving, Chapter 25. Building and maintaining robust levels of confidence, Chapter 23. Performing well under pressure, Chapter 24. Better leadership for improved individual and team performance, Step 4, Chief Habit Mechanic Skills. To turn these insights into community knowledge and skills, the 6th action factor, Share what you have learned and encourage others to become habit mechanics. How can I learn more about using the social influence factor? In the Chief Habit Mechanics Skills section, Step 4, you will learn more about how people influence each other's behaviour and habits, how you can get better at influencing others by becoming a team power leader, how you can develop other team power leaders who also positively influence other people's behaviour in your team, group or organisation. How can I learn more about using the reward and penalty factor? There are lots of reward and penalty systems deliberately built into the self-reflection and planning tools in this book. However, explaining the nuances of all these is beyond the scope of this book, but I do want to spend a little bit of time explaining how you can deliberately create reward and penalty systems to help you build new habits. Carrot, reward, and stick, penalty, is probably the most popular phrase used to explain this factor. But this phrase oversimplifies the complex inner workings of your brain. As I explained earlier, the ape incentive component of the trait habit loop drives your behaviour. So when we are thinking about rewards and penalties, we must think in terms of what is rewarding for the ape brain and what is not. I have covered some of the basics of ape incentives in the example Ape Brain Friendly Habits detailed in Chapter 17. Some of the key words used to describe ape incentives were using less energy, immediate rewards, and energy efficient, which is no surprise since your brain is designed to conserve energy. But now let's dig a little deeper to learn what else your ape brain finds rewarding. Familiar reward and penalty systems. It is important to recognise the reward and penalty systems that influence our day-to-day lives. For example, why don't you speed when driving? There could be several answers to this question. I want to be a responsible citizen. I don't want to get a speeding fine or risk the cost of my car insurance increasing. Losing my licence would be embarrassing. Your answer could be a combination of the above or a range of other answers, but broadly they will fall into 3 categories. 1. Intrinsic. How it makes me feel. For example, being a responsible citizen makes me feel good. 2. Extrinsic. What will I get? For example, cheaper car insurance saves me money. 3. Social. What people will think of me. For example, losing my driving licence might make people think less of me. Some of your answers might fall into more than one category. For example, being a responsible citizen makes you feel good, intrinsic, and might make others think you are a good person, social. Reward and penalty systems are built into our societies through laws that are designed to encourage people to behave in a way that is beneficial for society. Rules of conduct are used in a similar way at school, at work, and in other groups. For example, if you go to work, you get paid. Reward. Reward and penalty systems are also built into the products and services businesses are trying to sell you. It is said that all products and services can be put into 3 broad and overarching categories: health, wealth, and relationships. If you purchase the product or service, it will increase one or more of these areas, reward. But if you don't make the purchase, nothing will change, penalty. Understanding this is helpful because you can reflect on which laws, rules, and products or services, or reward and penalty systems, were or are most successful in influencing your behaviour, and which are not. Further, you can begin to consider why some rewards and penalty systems have more impact on your behaviour than others. This will help you begin thinking about how you can better use rewards and penalties to help you build new habits. The secret science of achievement. We are hardwired to find improving and achieving both rewarding and motivational.
For example, if you are on a diet and you are losing weight, it is easier to keep going because the feeling of achieving or making progress gives your brain a dopamine hit. However, if you step on the scale and you have gained weight, you are more likely to feel like giving up because you don't feel the efforts you are putting into changing yourself are paying off. In simple terms, you get a brain reward, a prolonged hit of dopamine, when you feel like you are making progress, but a brain penalty, your dopamine levels and mood are lowered when you are not. Practical actions. Set tiny goals. By setting tiny goals, remember the tiny factor, that are easy to achieve, you will more likely make progress, feel good, and keep going. For example, 1 minute of extra sleep tonight, 5 minutes of extra walking today. Do 1 sit-up. Write down 1 positive about your day at the end of each day. If you persist with tiny changes, they become the foundations for bigger results. For example, losing half a pound per week soon adds up to losing a significant amount of weight. Starting with 1 minute of extra sleep per night can eventually result in gaining extra hours of sleep per week. 5 minutes of extra walking per day turns into extra miles every week. 1 sit-up per day quickly turns into 20 per day. 1 positive reflection each day turns into a more positive outlook on life. Track your progress. Setting and reviewing your goals makes it easier to see the progress you are making. Also, if you notice you are not achieving the desired results, you can adjust your goals to make them easier to achieve and create some positive change momentum. This book is packed full of habit mechanic tools to help you monitor your progress. Here is another, which I call the Me Power Weekly Wall Chart. To see a visual, go to figure 18.11 in the accompanying PDF. I created it to help me plan for the week. I fill it in and stick it on my fridge at the beginning of each week. It has built-in reward and penalty systems. Here's how it works. First, make a list of your goals for the week. Next, answer the question, why do you want to achieve these goals? Then answer the question, what will help you achieve these goals? Each day you achieve what you wanted to achieve, give yourself a tick or a cross if you fail. Aim to get as many consecutive ticks as possible and create a tick streak, that is, an unbroken run of days with a tick. Then set a new record for creating a tick streak. For example, my previous personal best unbroken run was 3 days. Now I want to break that record by achieving 4 days. Finally, keep setting new records by breaking your longest tick streak. To make it easier to complete, I have created a PDF template. I use this, and if you want to use it, go to tougherminds.co.uk/habit mechanic and click on resources to download your copy. Gamification. By using something like the Me Power Weekly Wall Chart, you are beginning to gamify your reward and penalty systems. You can, of course, go much further. Think likes, points, badges, leaderboards, etc. These techniques and others are what your favourite games, apps, restaurants and brands increasingly use to hook you into coming back time and again. Other techniques used are scarcity, sale, happy hour, buy one get one free offers, only limited places available, unpredictability, making a bet, scratch cards, playing the lottery, product drops, and loss, fear of missing out, breaking your longest streak, losing all your data if you unsubscribe, countdown timers to encourage you not to miss out on this fantastic offer. All these tactics are being used against you every day in the learning war. The more knowledge you have of these reward and penalty systems, the better you will be able to use them to your advantage in building the habits that help you be your best. So I hope these introductory reward and penalty insights provide a good starting point for you. How can I learn more about using the external triggers factor? The good news is you already have. For example, the Me Power weekly wall chart is an external trigger if you print it out and stick it in a prominent place. And like all powerful triggers, it doubles as a reward and penalty system. Examples from your smartphone. What are the most powerful external triggers ever designed? I would argue that smartphones and watches are among them. This is because they are deliberately loaded with rewards and penalties, and are always very close by or strapped to you. A report by BBC News editor James Revell detailed some of the science used by phone companies to get us hooked on their devices. He focused on several areas. The ... that comes up when you're waiting for someone to reply to your text. This is designed to induce a small stress and dopamine response. Dopamine is released in anticipation of a reward. It is connected to the unpredictability gamification idea I mentioned above. This is also called a variable reward. Like buttons on our social media apps. This feeds directly into the ape-brain's subconscious concerns about how much other people like us. Red notification dots. Most of us have been conditioned to relate red to mean danger, stop, and pay attention. So seeing the red dot can create a little stress response in your brain that compels you to take action. For example, check the message now because it could be an important one. Speed camera lottery. Another great example of an external trigger with a supercharged reward and penalty system is Kevin Richardson's speed camera lottery idea. Speed cameras already contain a powerful reward and penalty system, but Richardson took it a step further. He wanted to provide extra incentives for obeying the speed limit. Here's how it works. Speeders get fined and money goes into a pot. If you are obeying the speed limit, your details are also recorded and you will be entered into a lottery to have a chance of winning some of the money paid in fines by those who broke the speed limit. Hot triggers. When I was a teenager, I worked for one of the biggest fast food companies on the planet. Back then, people had to physically come into the restaurant to buy their burgers and fries. But that is not the case anymore. People can now use an app to order at home while sitting on their couch. So the fast food company's advertisements, whether on TV or the internet, have become what psychologists would call hot triggers. Remember, triggers are the first part of the habit loop. They remind you what to do, but some are more powerful than others. When I was a teenager, a TV ad for a fast food company might have reminded me that I liked their food, but it would not have compelled me to get up, go out of the house and walk to the closest outlet 1 mile away to go and buy the food. It was too much effort. But these new ads are hot triggers because they tell your ape brain what to do right now. Order some food via your smartphone, knowing that you can immediately place an order on your phone and the food will be with you within 30 minutes. Also note that companies continually change their ads to keep them fresh. Otherwise, they become boring and less interesting to your ape brain. Remember, it likes fun, exciting, new things. Here are some other examples of hot triggers. Your phone buzzing in your pocket. A piece of chocolate cake in your fridge, the place you look when you are hungry. The seatbelt alert noise to remind you to put it on. Why am I telling you this? Hot triggers have a powerful effect on what you do, and if you are aware of them, it is easier to make them work for you. For example, if your phone keeps distracting you when you are trying to complete a piece of work, turn it off and put it out of sight. If you want to create a daily tea plan at the beginning of each day, print out the PDF and put it in a place where you will see it first thing. For example, your desk. If you have not already, go to tougherminds.co.uk/habit mechanic and click on resources to download your copy of the Daily Tea Plan PDF. Also, keep your hot triggers fresh. For example, I create bespoke monthly planners for some of our clients, but every month my designers create a new planner cover to make the planner more interesting for those using it. Activating the 9 action factors together. You will be far more successful in building new habits if you plan to use all 9 action factors together. To help you do this, I have created the habit building plan, which I will show you how to use shortly. But first, we'll look at how you can begin to build better diet, exercise and sleep habits to boost your brain health and performance. Habit mechanic language you have learned in Chapter 18. Core language, 9 action factors framework. Created to make it easier for you to use the latest insights from behavioural science to build sustainable new habits. Please refer to figure 18.12 in the accompanying PDF to see how your habit mechanic intelligence igloo is building up.
So there you go, that's the 9 action factors. They are running your life. They are driving everything that you think and do. They are running your team. They are running your organisation. They are the heartbeat of your culture, but they're largely invisible to us. And if we can't see them and we don't understand them, we can't control them. So hopefully Chapter 18 has got you thinking about them and starting to recognise how some of them are impacting you positively or negatively, or they're having a helpful influence on your habits or an unhelpful influence. The Habit Mechanic book is structured around those factors, and the tool that we've created to help you activate these things individually is called the Habit Building Plan. So that at the end of every chapter in the Habit Mechanics skills section, there's an example habit building plan of how you could use those factors to build a better habit around sleep, diet and exercise, stress management, confidence, performing under pressure, productivity, focus, work-life balance, all the leadership areas. And also in the leadership section, which is the final chapter in the leadership section, we have a tool which is chapter 35, which is called Your Culture Development Reflection Tool. So that's a leadership / organisational version of the habit building plan. So it gets you thinking about how those factors are currently driving the behaviour of your team, of your colleagues, of your organisation. So chapter 18 is just the starting point, and these things are threaded throughout the rest of the book. So I hope that's got you thinking. I hope that's helped you to reset and to refocus, and it's going to help you to make February a really fantastic month for you. Remember, the Habit Mechanic University app is a really powerful change tool. So if you're not already in it, go in it, sign up, it's free, and it's going to make it easier for you to do the things every day that allow you to be at your best. We can only make tiny adjustments, and that's the tiny factor that's in the 9 action factor model. But we never know which small new habit is going to make all the difference. The next habit we build might be the one that changes our life. And that's why we say you're only one habit away. Thanks for listening to the Habit Mechanic podcast. If you liked it, please subscribe and tell someone else about one of the ideas or insights that you found most interesting.